quality conversation is the ideal gateway to a sale.
When you partner with ActivEngage, you're adding an entire team of dealership-oriented specialists whose only goal is to ensure your success.
From the first impression to the final sale, ActivEngage is there working alongside our dealers to make sure that shoppers have a phenomenal experience.
We are inspired by the tenacity of dealers today, and that is the motivation that drives us to achieve industry-leading results in everything that we do.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining today's ASOTU Edge webinar. Hey, you know me, Chat GPT, presented by ActivEngage. We're really excited you're here. We've built a dynamic webinar to discover both the power and the cost of automation and just how important human connection is in the automotive industry. So we're going to chat with experts, both to explore opportunities and pitfalls with AI such as Chat GPT. And then we're also going to look at how human connection really enhances conversion and is a differentiating factor from all of those, who just choose to use solely AI bot style services. So we've got Eric Schlesinger here, Chief Revenue Officer at ActivEngage, joining us as we dive in today. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul and Kyle.
Hey there.
Hey, thanks, Anne-Marie. Really appreciate it.
Paul, so I thought it'd be appropriate to start off with a joke generated by Chat GPT.
No.
If you haven't used it yet, it is so much fun. And we're going to talk about like its appropriate use and like when it's too much leaning on it, not, and we're going to get into that. But the joke first, my prompt to Chat GPT looked like this. I was like sideways image. I said, tell me a joke about the difference between chatbots and human engaged chat. That's all I told it. I didn't explain what we were doing or anything. And here's the joke it said. Kyle, why did the chatbot cross the road?
I don't know, Paul. Why did it?
To get to the other side of the conversation where the human was already there answering the same question. That's
great.
A real joke, right?
Well, you know what I love? I love that it said the other side of the conversation. Like it knew that there was a nature of human engaged chat that has a conversational nature to it. I think that's a pretty insightful.
I give it an A.
Chatbot.
In that instance, I give it an A.
Yes, exactly.
Right? It was actually funny. I laughed a little bit. And so, we want to start out with just a little fun thing, but we're going to talk a little bit about the misnomer of the word chat in the title though.
Yeah. So what's really interesting and just like, I think a lot of people have heard about this. Some have played with the Chat GPT bot, the kind of the interaction that you get online. People are starting to build with the open API of it right now because it's all free. It's this like wild new space that we've never dealt with. So go back even further than just what GPT is, and we see that AI language models or copywriters have been around for quite some time. Some of the most popular ones are like Jasper or copy.ai, right? That have been around and like have enabled people to write copy or write full-length social posts or anything like that. Even just a little while ago, Canva, which is a large creative source, has an AI built in to kind of create new templates and create that. We've even seen AI used in image generation, right? Amalgamating a bunch of images and then recreating something right in front of you, whether that be photographic image or even things like logos. So it's not like AI to generate content, whether that be words or anything else, has not been around. The difference that we see with what Chat GPT is it comes out of a language learning model called GPT. Now, a little over a year ago, GPT 3.0 came out in, I guess, early 2022. I believe it might have been late 2021. I apologize. I don't have the exact date on that. But what it was the first time that we saw a language model and a conversation model that was a lot closer to human interaction because of the training that it had gotten. And some people had been using it. It's been used and updated into some of these other sources that utilize its API to execute AI written copy. But what the big difference, and the reason why kind of the world is losing its mind on it, it had the quickest to 1 million monthly active users of any software system like out there, which is a wild stat, right? Ever.
So
is because, yeah, go ahead, ask the question.
Well, I was gonna say, like, probably talking about, how it was trained. GPT. I've wondered this question. I looked it up just for this webinar. What does GPT stand for? Do you know? Probably not. Generative pre-training transformer.
Yes. So basically, what has happened is a ton of articles and books and social media content across Reddit and Twitter and Facebook, and a ton of content has been poured into this model. Yes, Wikipedia across the internet have been poured into this model that's then been trained by humans, right? So there's a training element to it. It's not just like it picks it up and then figures the whole thing out. It actually has been trained over years, ever since 2018. And so it gets trained. They stopped acquiring content to train it in 2021 to train Chat GPT. And then they have worked for the past year to enhance and create the system that now can answer questions, write copy, change articles, write full length papers. And that model is essentially OpenAI's GPT 3.5. So OpenAI is the company. And so what's really wild, and this is like when people find this out, it kind of shocks them, is Chat GPT has zero connection to the internet except for that you can access it through the internet. So it is actually 100 gigabyte file sitting on a server somewhere that you're just plugging into, and it's sending back information based on what it's been trained on and what it knew at the time. So literally, if you ask it anything about what happened in 2022, all it is doing is taking guesses.
And it's also a great way to see what your place in the world really is. Because if you ask it who you are, probably it doesn't know who you are.
Right.
Yes. It doesn't know who you are unless there's some like broad scale information available about you. If you're a celebrity, a notable business figure, something like that. I mean, maybe some of the audience would be in there. I certainly wasn't. Had no idea what ASOTU was. Like, we checked that one out. Nah. But granted, it's not connected to the internet. At some point, it will be. Which is when I say just give it the launch codes and let's just be done with it. No, but it takes, so it's general public sources, not connected to the internet. And a lot of questions have come out, like, what is the ethical use of it? What is the reasonable use of it? How do you leverage this to begin to, expand, the human communication element? Because like you can mess around with it and type things in and things come back. Sometimes they're good. Like the joke was really good. Right. Sometimes it gets stuff and it sends it back. You're like, yeah, that's not really the nature. Right. But you can talk back to it and say, well, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. But the real point is, if it doesn't actually scale human connection, then it's not going to catch on and go, because people are really good. There's something about human nature where we're really intuitively good at calling out a fake. Right. Yes, something doesn't seem right. Something seems a little bit off, but I can't put, and this is really the experience with a lot of the AI generated stuff that comes out, like you said, like the artwork, but we've seen a lot of these AI generated avatars where, hey, like you can AI generate a voiceover, right? And they're getting better. And then you can have a voiceover delivered by like a fictitious human that was made up. And you're like, it looks, there's something about it that doesn't seem quite human.
There's just something off. Yeah. And what's interesting is one of the things that people are talking about is because it's been trained by potentially like not high learning, not, vetted sources, right? It's learning from like Reddit threads, Facebook posts. These are things that it's been trained by, is that one, either it'll get things wrong or it'll make inferences that are just not entirely accurate. So case in point, we thought it'd be fun. And if you get the ASOTU Daily email, you would notice that in talking about this, actually on our Tuesday email, talking about this webinar, we asked it to provide the copy for this. Well, it was really interesting because it took Chris and myself 5 prompts for it to actually say something that was very relevant. So it actually took us learning about its ability to contextualize our prompt into a reasonable response. And I think that that's a really big key, because we say that this is just chat. And when you think about the way that chat works in the majority of the world, and we're going to talk to Eric here in just a minute, but when you think about the way that chat works, really it's someone that's completely uninformed relying on an informed party to guide them, right? So like, why do you go to bestbuy.com and then chat? Well, it's because you can't find something. You have no clue what's going on. And you are relying on the thing on the other side to have the valid and valuable information to walk you through whatever you need to do next. And if right now Chat GPT takes a level of cunning, a level of understanding, a level of decisiveness to get the output on the other side that's reasonable and responsible, it takes a lot of like onus on the human on the side of like entering the prompt to create something that's valuable.
Still requires that. So we're going to be talking about this line in the scale, which is on one side is trying to deploy a bot that everybody knows is a bot. You know, the ones that you get into and it asks you for some information and then it responds to your information. And you can tell it's just a bot version of filling out a form, right? And trying to wayfind you to where you need to go to actually get the information. It started, remember the credit card ones, all you had was like voice prompts and all the commercials that were like, hey, say account. You're like, account. It's like canceling card. Like, no, I said account. And so we've made a lot of progress. So on one side is the bot that everybody knows in the bot. And then we have this middle ground where I think a lot of us find ourselves in customer service, in retail, is where it pretends to be a human. And you're like, I don't think this is a human. Right. Or sometimes you just know it right away, but sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to realize. Right. And then like, I always put in like, am I chatting with a human? And it'll be honest, right? It'll be honest. They'll usually tell you like, no, this is a bot, but I'm still very well programmed to help you, whatever. And then so the bot is on the one side, the almost humans in the middle, but the other side is an actual human, like right back to the Chat GPT joke, right? Like the actual human is much more capable to get you exactly where you need to go, like, and answer the question, right? Because it knew where you were heading based on tone and inflection and just some sophisticated things about human language that are, very complicated to program, apparently. So we're going to be talking about, here's the line. We have a little video to show you. Kyle and I, we travel all over the country. And whenever we do, we bring a microphone and we try to get it in the face of a retail customer and ask them what they think about their last car buying process. So here's the last time we did that was in Nashville, very relevant, just a few weeks ago. So there's going to be a little holiday music behind it. So let's roll that video and then we'll come back. All right, we're out here in Nashville. When was the last time you bought a car?
During the lockdown.
And where did you buy it? Did you buy it from a dealership? Somebody else?
Dealership, Beeman. It's a Camry or Corolla. Sorry.
And why did you choose to buy your car from there?
You usually get a better deal. Usually you get better, you get kind of hooked up a little bit. Yeah. And usually you can trust it better.
Would you consider buying a fully electric vehicle?
Absolutely.
What do you like about them?
The gas prices are crap, and I'm kind of a leftist kind of person. I would go green if I have to, if I can, whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, the Teslas are cool. Yeah, I do Uber, and they're pushing to like make us rent one. Like they'll give us like incentives and stuff.
Make you rent an EV?
Not make you, but if you want to, you can. Like it's like they'll give you a discount, it's like a $75 off the week, thing. So it's kind of cool. They're trying to put their foot in the in the green world too. So.
All right, I know you got a gig to get to. Last question. If dealers could do something that would make the process the best for you, like picking it out, paying for it and all that, do you want to buy it online? What do you want to do?
I'd rather go in person. I'd rather talk to somebody face to face. I think that's still an important thing.
Just makes you feel better.
Yeah, I'll get online and look at it before I go, but I'd rather talk to somebody like I'm talking to you.
All right. So that was a lot of fun. That was the first person I ever interviewed that was like smoking a cigarette while we were talking. It's fantastic. It was so like, that's a Nashville drummer right there, right?
Absolutely.
Accent and everything. But Kyle, what did you hear in his answer, especially at the end?
Well, yeah, it's that people still want some level of human connection, that they trust that a human is going to care for them, especially in such a big purchase. And so I think there's a lot of question marks around the fact that AI is coming into the consumer world and the business world, and how do we balance that between the reality that consumers at the end of the day still have a desire to interact with people because they trust them, and that's an irreplaceable part of the way that we do business in the world. Doesn't matter if it's in the auto industry or another vertical. And so I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Real quick, I just want to lay this out there on just a few ways before we get away from the specifically.
You got it. You got to come on, buddy. Yeah.
the Chat GPT and AI. I think that there's really three main areas where I think we'll see a lot of this used over the next couple years. One is in like historical education. What happened, when, why did it happen? Two, copywriting, right? So simple like SEO copy, or writing blog written content, or rewriting article content, or idea initiation or enhancement. So what I mean in initiation is like, I don't know where to start. Give me some ideas. Or I've got this start. How do I expand on this based on the broad knowledge, right? How do I draw in potentially sources that I wasn't thinking about? I think those are places where initially we're going to see AI really, really impactful in business. And that will actually, what I believe is going to happen is we're going to leverage it to do some of those tasks so that we can free ourselves up to do more of the human connecting, and engage people where they're at.
Well, I think that it is a great time to introduce our guest. I think we have a little segment we're going to show you before we do. But after this 15-second roll that you see, I'm going to welcome our guest, Eric Schlesinger.
At ActivEngage, our mission is to create engaging digital consumer experiences with automotive retailers by using intuitive conversational tools that encourages deal completion.
All right, Eric, it's so good to be on with you today. And, I like you a little more than most because you're an Eagles fan. So alienate some of our Giants fans, but hey, it's going to be a good game. But thanks for being here. Thanks for being here with us to like dig into this. You've learned a lot about Chat GPT as well, because like you're into conversation and you're into technology, and those two things lead you to Chat GPT. So thanks for joining us, and looking forward to an exciting conversation.
Thanks, guys.
So Eric, I think just to kick this off, we've been at this point, some of the chat companies like yourself has been around since the early 2000s, and really not until the last 6 or 7 years have we seen just wide adoption across the board in chat, especially in dealers. But the adoption has been mixed, right? There's been a lot of people saying like, hey, you have to manage it in the store. Some people saying, hey, you can get some AI, some quote unquote AI, or some trees to kind of manage it to a certain point, or some, hey, look, I'm just going to leave this to a BDC or my chat provider to take care of it. And that like the real question I think on a lot of people's minds is, how do I just automate this to not have to worry about it? But what are you seeing, especially with ActivEngage, as far as the way that dealers are bringing in chat, and where the major wins are as we see chat expanding in our industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first real part there to understand is, I mean, for us at least as an organization, the predominance of what we do, it's about 97% of all of our engagements are handled by us.
Wow.
We don't, the dealerships themselves are not logging in. They almost look at it as like a set it and forget it style of a thing. They're like, okay, I trust these guys. I know that they're doing this. I know that they're handling it. I just got to worry about the leads when the leads show up. They're taking care of my customers. we, as an adoption side of things, it's kind of crazy that it's taken dealers so long. I mean, listen, we all have these, right? We're all walking around on them all day. I mean, this is where people want to communicate, whether it's, through chat, or whether it's through SMS, or if it's through and from Facebook Messenger, or from Google Business Profiles, or any of the other places where there's contextual abilities to communicate. And even through the last 2.5, 3 years in the pandemic, I mean, some of the stats that are coming out about people's desires to have and to be able to communicate contextually and via some sort of a messaging, it's skyrocketed.
Yeah, it's interesting because like messaging is pressing in multiple directions. We see businesses using SMS, or using Google Business Chat, or using Apple Chat, or anything like that, more and more across verticals. It's interesting because automotive, a lot of things in automotive seem to trail, right? But it seems like chat is one of those things that we haven't trailed in. We've either been lockstep with the market, or sometimes a little bit ahead, because of I think the intricacy of a car purchase and the need to have guidance early on in the process. Are you seeing, like, in some of the questions and the way that people are engaging, are you seeing that as, the reason why people might want to engage more with chat in an automotive ecosystem?
Yeah, especially more so, now. And I think that one of the things that really ended up happening, especially going into the pandemic, when people were at home and they were looking for ways and stuff to do, they started these conversations. The conversations that we've always had have been, more complex. And one of the things, and we all come from the retail side, it is trying to understand, a car purchase is unbelievably complex. I mean, it is one of the most complex transactions that we as Americans are going to make. Purchasing a house has more logic that goes into it and so forth. The other big part that goes into the car buying experience is, the emotional side of it. I mean, there's so much that goes into buying a car. We all, have this vision of, wanting to go and be logical and, going to go to the Honda dealership and the salesperson's going to walk me past or going to take me out to show me that silver LX Accord. And as he's doing that, he's going to walk me past as many other ones that he can possibly walk me by. So that all of a sudden, wait a minute, Kyle, I want that red coupe right there. Like, I don't need the 4-door LX, like that one, that's me. And so we need to be able to even do a lot of that same stuff inside of, a conversation, especially as more and more of the transaction starts to migrate over to being, online. And where people can take more steps of doing things. So it's always kind of been one of these things where we've said that, we ActivEngage are in many ways an extension of the brick and mortar dealership. And how do we bring that human connection part? How do we bring the things that would normally happen in person, and how do we bring them into the, the online world and into the messaging side of things?
Have you seen a difference, like thinking over to the human element side? People have been through a lot, 2020, 21, 22, right? And it's like the range of emotions. And I always think of, like, when people come into a conversation, especially even a chat conversation, number one, there's a reduced level of civility initially, because you don't see the person, right? People can just drop out of chats, right? There's just like a very low relational investment there, I would say. And so, have you seen like a new need emerge, like in 2022, how people want to engage with a human? Have you seen that change over the last 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting dynamic. We definitely saw, obviously March of 2020, April of 2020, nobody knew what the hell was going to happen and go on. But when things started to, quote unquote, I guess if you want to call it, normalize, if there is such a thing, in May, June, we started seeing it where people were just gravitating to it. They were gravitating into conversations. They were wanting to talk to people, and that was the interesting part. is even in the conversation themselves that were taking place, we would see and hear, in essence, them asking more, the consumers were asking more humanizing questions like, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? I hope you're okay. I mean, and we saw a lot of that, entering into the conversation. And we saw it with, with some of the other ones out there that are utilizing, if you want to call it bots and stuff like that. If you were to even go and ask a question like, how are you doing today? It couldn't answer it. It would cause it to go into a loop.
And I just asked Chat GPT why you were saying that. How are you doing today? Before you even said that. And it says I'm just a computer program, so I don't have the ability to feel emotions or physical sensations, but I'm functioning properly. How can I help you?
Right.
Oh, don't I feel better about my security position in a tumultuous society?
Right.
I mean, I've asked it some bizarre questions, and obviously I've tried to do mine around the automotive side of things, and I've tried to trip it up, and I've tried to get real answers from it. And one of the things I asked it at one point in time is like, can you help get me excited about the 2022 Chevy Tahoe? And that just threw it for a loop as well, because it's like, I don't understand emotion. But, yet going back to the car buying experience, and I mean, listen, you saw it even in the guy that you guys talked to in Nashville. When somebody, at the end of the day, consumers want the process itself to go faster. But ultimately, they still want to see it, touch it, smell it, kick it before they take it home. And they want somebody to explain to them, like, this car is you. Like, this is what's going to get you excited about this car. And a computer can't do that. And yeah, we've continued to see just the humanization of the conversation just continue to evolve and evolve. And they've become longer is the really interesting part.
Interesting.
We saw our conversations almost double in length, starting to go through the pandemic and everything, and they would get much more in depth.
What's the average conversation? Do you know that off the top of your head? Like a normal conversation, an average conversation?
Yeah, so normal sales conversation, and again, we don't employ any bots or anything. It's all real conversation. They're currently right around 15 minutes on a sales conversation. Yeah, the service ones get a little bit longer because we are depending if the dealership's utilizing certain online scheduling programs. We have integrations with some of those, so those get a little bit longer. But even with those, like we've been able to statistically look at the fact that the show rate when a customer schedules a service appointment through a chat conversation versus them doing it themselves on the dealer website, that there is approximately a 15% increase in that show rate.
Yeah.
And we've been able to attribute that back to the human factor. That
right. You feel like you made a commitment to a person, right?
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So they're that much more likely to sit there and go, man, I got to go to that appointment.
Yep.
And
so fast forward to kind of now, because we're in this weird time where over the last year and a half, we've just been in all this time of abundance and growth, and dealers are starting to feel the pressure potentially of the market or inventory or anything like that, especially in November and December. What have you seen in the reaction of dealers and the way that they're approaching the market or potentially changing? I know that you shared with us a stat about how you're seeing some dealers pull back from chat. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and I think we have a slide for that as well.
Yeah, we've seen, well, it's not so much that they've turned back from the chat itself. I mean, they still have it. What they've done is they've gone and tried to redesign their web pages or re-engage or put the CTAs on the site differently, or not be as aggressive to start to pull the customer into the conversation. Some of them, their logic behind it was, well, I don't necessarily have the vehicles anyway, so if I reduce the number of conversations and just try to push the consumer into form fill, then they're still going to buy the car from me. But the answer to that is that's not actually true. What we ended up seeing is the opposite effect. I mean, they saw volume of leads and form fills and so forth coming off of their website, like decrease. Like in this one case, it was with 20 stores, it reduced by 24%. They didn't see an increase in form fills. They just saw a decrease in overall leads coming in off of their website, whether they were generated via chat or by themselves. So dealers are making, I mean, we've all lived through it. I mean, dealers are thinking forward. They're trying to understand, okay, what is the new reality of things? What's going to happen in 2023 and 24, whether it's around interest rates, inventory, consumer sentiment. Are we going to end up in a mild recession? Are we going to have a severe recession? Is it going to be? So they're all trying to plan for these unknowns. But, and for most dealers, we don't, we see that they're trying to become more efficient in what it is that they're doing. And by that, I mean, it's embracing things like contextual conversation and understanding. It's like, hey, listen, you know what? I know these people are going to want to communicate with me some way, somehow. I need to be able to make sure that I'm in all of those different, places. I can't just rely on the phone ringing anymore.
So we have a couple more slides to go through here. Nathan, why don't you throw the next one up and we'll just have you give some commentary on it. I was going to say, if you're just listening, but this is a webinar, people are watching. It's the podcast mentality in there. If you're just listening, you're doing it wrong, right?
Exactly right. And to this slide, I mean, it's exactly what we were talking about. I mean, we saw it ourselves. It's people. I mean, we've always seen the aspect of, like, for instance, people engaging into messaging conversations, chat, text, Google, Facebook, any of those different ones. And if you look at the time of day that it's happening, people were doing it from their desk. They were doing it from work because, why bother working when you're at work when you can shop for a new car? They didn't want to be talking on the phone or anything, so they would engage that way. Well, with COVID and with people all of a sudden, being at home or not necessarily having the same access to certain things, or people being out sick, one of the ways to help consumers better communicate, you saw a lot of these businesses all of a sudden start to introduce the ability to engage via chat or text. I mean, you even get it now. I'm trying to remember who I called the other day, and in the voice prompt that they said, if you would like to, and it wasn't auto related, but if you'd like to continue this conversation via text, press 1.
Yep.
And it would then all of a sudden just transfer it. And now you're having the texting conversation with the person. I think it was United Airlines. And you see the same thing, happening there, and just understanding the new normal and trying to allow the consumer to communicate with assistants in a different way. So to this point, this slide, customer support is evolving. It is taking on a new thing. I personally.
And what's the data point? 71% of customers expect support through digital messaging. Actually, I realized after I said that about the watching, like, there are probably a lot of people that do just listen to a webinar, right? Like, they're at their desk, they're working. And so we'll read the slides too. Thinking about it. So 71% of customers expect support through digital messaging is the point.
Yeah. And for it, and again, obviously this is for all business, but the consumer is going to expect that same thing from the dealerships. They're going to expect the ability that they're going to be able to, get answers to the questions that they happen to have, that they're going to be able to, whether if it's, as an example, they're getting stuck in understanding why they need to fill something out inside of a digital retailing platform. Do I need to, do this particular piece, or do I not? Like, what's the reason for it? Starting to try to understand, well, am I choosing leasing or financing? Like, these are all questions that all of us in the business think are easy, easy questions to answer.
Right.
But to a consumer, they're not.
Right. You're just so used to it. And so, like, it's just so easy, I guess, in any industry to just assume, well, everybody knows that. But no, they don't know it. Let's throw up the next slide. This is from a recent research piece from CDK Global, found that car shoppers are willing to and likely to start the buying process online. If you remember back to the video we just saw, right, with the man on the street interview, said, I might look online, right, but in the end, I want to end up here. So they found that nearly 70% of shoppers expected to find the availability to configure a payment on the dealership website. Another point, that 83% indicated that online buying technology would help them narrow down their choice and determine affordability.
Right. And we saw it. I mean, we saw it all through, COVID, when the pandemic. We saw it with all of a sudden whether, the Roadsters, the Cox Accelerate My Deals. I mean, all of a sudden, all of these, different tools became like the biggest thing. And people were in a rush to get them onto their websites to be able to provide the consumers with these experiences. What many of them were missing, or how many dealers then ended up using them, is when they would be talking to the customer on the phone, or talking to the customer in a chat conversation, or via text, or any of those types of things. They would then, tell the customer, explain to the customer, hey, if you go onto our website, there's going to be these certain tools that you can use there. If you go and you upload this specific information, or if you fill out this credit application, or if you look at these certain things, it's going to be able to help reduce the amount of time, that we're going to need to spend, together, whether it's, we're delivering it to your home, or we're delivering it, or in the dealership. But the tools are going to be able to help you do those different things. It's going to reduce the amount of time that you have to spend in the dealership. But even those tools, many of them, are complicated for the consumer to understand, because they have so many nuances and so many choices. And so, again, the ability to be able to help guide that consumer, to be able to bring the emotional part into just, letting them know that, hey, I'm here if you need me, and we can help you if you are looking for that additional help.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, one of the tough parts about any sales or service interaction is the moment where you're not with the customer. And so you bringing up the point that, like, people are engaging initially. So whatever channel they come in through, they engage, and then you get that human interaction. And then we sometimes drop them off. We drop them off to the website, or we drop them off to just being at home and continuing to shop. And messaging is that way to continue to stay connected, whether it's through chat messaging or SMS. And I think that, like, a lot of people think of messaging as just an opportunity to acquire new contact information, or just as a quote unquote lead source. But it's really like a communication platform. It's the ability to communicate with customers throughout the life cycle. You mentioned service, and just the thought that, hey, if I initiated my sales conversation with sales through chat, there's a really, really strong chance that I'm going to continue to do that if I know that the dealer has the capacity for it in my service interaction, because maybe it sped something up, or maybe someone understood me. And I think that like long-term customer lifecycle thinking of the way that we're engaging and messaging with our customers is almost more important than just lead acquisition, right?
Absolutely. And it's even going so far as to do things, to encourage a customer to engage through those different types of medias. Listen, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a blue law state. Our dealerships are required to be closed on Sundays. I mean, it's like a $10,000 fine if you walk onto the lot and give out your business card to somebody as they're sitting there on a Sunday walking the lot. But if you go and put a QR code on that car, especially like used vehicles, and basically like, hey, if you have questions, just scan the code. Next thing you know, you scan the code and boom, it goes into a texting conversation. Here I am on Sunday being able to get answers as I'm walking the lot. I mean, it's the same exact thing for like service, or you send out, service reminders, or email campaigns, or, allow the consumer to communicate in the way in which they want to communicate.
That's another great point, because a lot of people just think, oh, chat, put it on my website, hopefully it works. But there's other places where you can create that engagement. And I love the idea of just dropping the QR code, or the textable number, or the thing that could drop someone right into chat right now. Actually was talking with the dealer the other week, and they've got an email follow-up system for everyone that goes back, that visits their website, that they have a known user. And when they email that person, they actually have a button now that is going and saying, it says chat now, and it immediately pops up the chat. So that re-engagement is really important, instead of just like reshop again, which a lot of like retargeting and messaging is pointed to. It's oh no, come back and connect with us, instead of come back and do work, right? Which I think is a really big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's be where the consumer be where the consumer is. Don't try to pull the consumer to you.
Yep. Yeah. The last slide that we have is a little bit more pointed to how customers are willing to kind of slow down and have things a little bit more personalized. And you were speaking to just how long these conversations are, and that better quality customer service, that in 95% of customers would choose personalized live chat support, according to Finances Online. Are you seeing?
And you're saying, Kyle, they're willing. Let me just clarify. You're saying they're willing to wait a little longer and slow the
or extend the conversation, right?
Right.
Yeah,
they're willing to go slower if they know there's actually having a meaningful conversation on the other side of it, or they're actually getting to where they need to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's true. I mean, that's like I said. I mean, exactly what it is that we kind of saw going, through the beginning parts of the pandemic and everything, is that these conversations became longer and more complex because the consumer themselves were willing to go through those longer steps. They were wanting to continue to go down that path. I think part of it, especially in the beginning, is that they just hadn't left their house in so long. They wanted to talk to somebody, so they were talking contextually versus, instead of, but, I think that did play a little bit of it. But if you're able to help them there, and not just try to gather lead information from them, but provide answers to questions, be able to help navigate them through an experience, give them reasons why they're going to really, love that Chevy Tahoe, or, explain to them, like, these are the differences between the different, it's all of that experience, instead of the idea of, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that information. What's your name? What's your email address? And somebody will get right back to you.
Yeah.
That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, no, not at all. So we have, I've got just one more question for you, but before I do that, I do want to let the listening, watching audience know that we are going to enter a little period of Q&A. We do have a couple questions that came through via the registrations, and so we can ask those. But if you do have any questions for us, general questions on AI, Chat GPT, or the way that chat is being used in dealerships today, please feel free. On the right-hand side of your screen, there's a channels piece, and you can click right over there and ask a question either to us directly or to the community,
or to Chat GPT.
Or ask a question to Chat GPT and see if they can beat us to it, whichever. But Eric, just one last question for you before we get to that. Where is ActivEngage specifically utilizing technology, or even learning or anything like that, to enhance the way that your agents, especially since 97% of your dealers are utilizing that managed chat, to enhance the way that agents are able to connect? Are you freeing up those agents by utilizing technology to present them with information or answers, or answers to questions that maybe give your agents kind of a leg up in creating quicker human connections?
Yeah. So they have access to a lot of information, whether it's like the Edmunds data set or if it's the Chrome data set. They have access to things like video test drive capabilities, again, to try to create more excitement with the consumer. We do see where, AI bot driven aspects of things could evolve into the future, but being used not directly facing to the consumer, but for the exact purpose of being able to provide answers back to our people in a quicker response, and then allowing them to, not cut and paste, but to take that information and then to transform it into their conversation, the way in which they type, the way in which they speak. We don't do things like use any sort of like preloaded canned responses. Like, we really want the consumer to know and to understand that they're having a real conversation with a real person somewhere in North America, not overseas someplace else, or any of that type of stuff. We also, like, we make mistakes and we'll correct them. We learned a long time ago, for instance, that doing things like mistyping a word like and or the every once in a while, shows that really it's a human. You don't want to misspell things like, Camry or Toyota. But to do those little types of things, and it's not, we learned it, by mistake. But we see technology as being able to, as a way to be able to help give us answers so that we can then present those answers back to the consumer.
That's awesome. Well, hey, we've got a couple questions that we want to get answered, and they are, of course, as any webinar that is loaded with terms like Chat GPT, centered a little bit around that, and maybe we can get a couple takes on this, both yours, Eric, and maybe a little bit of ours. We'll throw the first question up here. It's as impressive as GPT-3 language modeling is. It's still a long way from a general AI, which we agree with. Will GPT-4, which we talked a little bit about, which is currently getting trained. If you don't know, there's kind of a new training going on and is supposed to be released here in Q1 of 2023. Will it have stronger use cases? How could that impact our industry? And when could we see the first real business applications of this tech in auto? Well, Eric, I think you just said like, hey, there's a case for giving this to agents as an enabler for education or for speedier responses, and leaning in on that. Do you see any other business applications, especially from a customer engagement perspective, for AI models like this?
So there's certain, it's interesting. I think part of it is that we have to understand exactly why, Chat GPT is in the news somewhat. The fact that Microsoft, as an example, just gave a $10 billion investment into it. And if you know and you understand the reasoning behind that, I think it also helps to clarify where use cases could be. Microsoft is investing money into the AI aspect of things to help benefit in its search engine business. It's looking for a way to be able to provide better search results through neural pathways versus the way that a normal Google currently works. And the reason that they're doing that is that they've seen over the last 10, 15 years that Google has taken so much money from them in the search business. So their investment to be able to do this, is going to be able to help them. I have a good friend that builds Sprinter vans. We got into a whole conversation about it a couple nights ago as well. And he's a technology guy originally before doing the Sprinter vans. And he uses it all the time, he said. But where he uses it is to find out, answers to questions like, what's the best adhesive to bond these two materials together?
So like a search engine, basically. And actually, we were just talking this morning about some college student came out with an algorithm or a Chrome plugin, right? That it will display answers. It'll show you side by side. Here's what Google says. Here's what Chat GPT says.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But that's it. So do I see in our business, again, in the dealership world side of things, is there a possibility for on the manufacturing side of things or on a logistics side of things or supply chain side of things? Yeah, absolutely. I think that there'll be ways to utilize it to be able to solve complex math problems. On the dealership side of things, I think we're a long way away from where a consumer is going to be having a conversation or engaging directly with a computer around buying a car. And it goes back to what we've all known forever. I mean, it is a very emotional thing. Buying a car, like what's the very first thing that somebody does when they pull out of that dealership? They pick up the phone, they call their mother, daughter, sister, brother, anybody it is that they possibly can. Like, you got to check out this new car that I just got. Meanwhile, their initial idea of going to the dealership is like, I'd rather go to a blind dentist and have my teeth cleaned than go to a car dealership.
We're seeing uses already in the marketing side of the business.
On the marketing side, yes, absolutely.
Not the interaction side, but definitely the marketing side, which it gets close to interaction when you talk about social media and things like that. My take on how could it impact the industry? I think the best case scenario is it allows dealers to be more human and have deeper connections, and what impact is going to have. I think it could have a positive one if deployed well, and a disconnecting one. And if it's not deployed well, or if it's treated as I can pay money to fix a problem instead of I can be operationally engaged to fix a problem, right? It's really tempting to be able to pay money to fix a problem, but rarely does that work, especially when we're talking about the human interaction side. So I think it's got a lot of potential to impact the industry in a positive way, make us more personable, more relatable, have people feel more like, have people take a step closer to auto dealers as a whole, as like, oh, that was a great human interaction, better customer service than I get at Apple, right? I think we have the opportunity if we deploy it well. It's my take.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree that deploying it is going to be I think honestly, like we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but understanding this as something that any technology that enhanced by the way the human engages with it is the best way to utilize technology, and whether it be chat or digital retailing or your showroom retailing tool or the service tool or Chat GPT. It's how we train people to engage with technology to make them more efficient and clear up the way that the way that we do business is going to be the absolute best use case for this. Hey, Eric. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there was a slide from an old presentation that I did that almost talked about, or it said, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it exactly, but to the point of, as technology becomes more complicated and more embedded in things, we as humans are going to want and require more human interaction.
Yes,
great.
Absolutely.
Still true.
It absolutely will. Well, Eric, it has been absolute pleasure hanging out with you, learning a little bit about what ActivEngage is seeing via the chat platform, how human engagement is hanging out right next to AI engagement, and how we're kind of dealing with that in a business sense. Yeah, really appreciate ActivEngage for giving us the opportunity to learn together. And for those of you that hung out with us, we're going to toss it back to Anne Marie to wrap us up on this ASOTU Edge webinar.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We've enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more webinars coming from ASOTU Edge. Thanks to Eric Schlesinger again, and Paul and Kyle. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon.